Hey boys, welcome. In this lesson, we're going to look at separating mixtures. In the previous lesson, we spoke about different kinds of mixtures and particles and how we define mixtures. Today, we're going to look at how do we separate mixtures. Once we've mixed things together, how do we get them apart? And there's different processes we're going to look at. For each process, I want you to describe what's happening in that process. Describe how the things are being separated, okay? And the second thing I want you to be able to do is I want you to explain when we would use those different processes. What I mean by that is give me an example of when we'd use that process. Why would we use that process on this example of a mixture but not on this one? All right, so those are the objectives. We're going to jump straight into it with our first process, which is sorting by hand, okay? So this is a process we use when we have a mixture of things that are quite large and easy to grab hold of and move, okay? And sorting by hand is simply looking at a mixture and removing out pieces of it physically, okay? This can only be used on mechanical mixtures. The pieces have to be large and the pieces have to be different in some way, okay? So for example, if you look here, here's one of those American cereals that have the marshmallow pieces mixed into them. Now this person has sorted by hand all the marshmallow pieces so that they are no longer mixed in with the rest of the cereal. That's an example of sorting by hand. Sorting by hand is probably the most obvious way of separating mixture. It's where you just pick out the pieces from a mixture, separate it out, okay? It's if I gave you a whole pack of 10 cents coins and 5 Rand coins and told you to sort it out. What you would probably do is you'd probably just pick out all the 5 Rand coins, set them there, and all the 10 cents coins and set them there. That's sorting by hand. Okay, so that's the first process. So hopefully you can describe how sorting by hand works and you can describe the situation we'd use it in. Now, just to be clear, I will go over that. A situation we'd use it in is when the pieces are large and they're easy for us to grab and move apart. All right. Now, the next process is actually two processes. It's sieving and filtering. But sieving and filtering are basically the same thing. There is a difference, and we'll talk about what the difference is later. But right now, I just want you to think of them, lump them together, and then we'll separate them once we understand how they work, okay? So another means of removing materials from a mixture is using a sieve or a filter. A sieve or a filter is something that is made up of these small holes, which allows certain size materials through, but not other materials. So if you have a mixture of materials where it's made up of some materials that are bigger and some materials that are smaller, you use a sieve or a filter. And what that does is when you pour it in, the small ones fall through the gaps in the sieve or filter, and the big ones can't fit through. Small ones fit through, big ones can't fit through, okay? So that's what sieving and filtering is, okay? It's just when we have a substance made up of different size particles, we use a sieve or a filter, and all the sieve and the filter does is they have these different size holes, and they let through small things that are smaller than the hole, but they don't let through things that are bigger than the holes that they're made up of, okay? We use this method when we have a mixture of objects that are different sizes, but are too difficult to sort by hand, okay? So think about coffee. Like here we have an example of coffee grounds and water. You don't want the coffee grounds in your water unless you're having a Turkish coffee, but let's not get into that. Yeah, so you have these coffee grounds mixed with your coffee. You pour the coffee and the water and the coffee grounds through a filter, and what goes through is your water and your coffee flavoring, but what remains behind are the particles of coffee. Okay, that's what sieving and filtering is. It's just using this thing to keep behind bigger pieces and to take out the smaller stuff or the liquid. Okay, so what's the difference between sieving and filtering? A sieve has large holes and removes larger pieces from a mixture. A filter has smaller holes and lets through very little particles. Okay, that's the only difference, is the size of holes that the sieve and filter are made with. All right, so that's the second process we're talking about, sieving and filtering. Hopefully you can describe how it works, what do we do when we sieve and filter, and secondly, hopefully you can describe in what situation we would use them in, okay?